In 2011, a couple of mercenaries escaped the back streets of Junction, still wanted by the masses. If you can find them, maybe you can call the late team, the voices of Reading.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Late Show. We are live. It's Wednesday night, and you know it's our time. I've got my I've got my co-host in the studio as ever, Brother Soggy, and also we've got our resident Brother Julian in the studio as well. It's going to be a hot show today. A lot of adverts been going around. Today's show will be about British nationals fighting abroad. And you know, we basically want to educate ourselves, and we want to give the people an opportunity to express their views about it as well. So you're more than welcome to join in the show. It's an open discussion. You know, we don't want to be just hearing our voices, so please do get involved. If you want to text in, the text number is 07909 567 527, and if you want to call in live in the studio, it's 01189 660382. I will be giving out those numbers regularly through the show. So, Soggy, how you doing?
Alhamdulillah, bro. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm all right. Not bad, not bad. You know, a lot of talk about this topic, especially in the recent weeks in the media, in the news. You know, what's generally been your feeling about it? I know there's a lot of humanitarian work going on in Syria, but it is a war going on. So, you know, generally, you know, what is your feeling on this issue?
Bro, since the title of the show went on, considering I didn't have a clue about it, I've been getting a lot of texts regarding it, asking my thoughts, and if I was a firm believer in this, and not respecting Britain for what it's done for me and what it's done for most of our people, etc. Why I don't go out and go fight on the cause of Syria. You know, I'm gonna knock this on the head. Simple, my own personal opinion. First and foremost, I'm not that way inclined. My personal opinion on this agenda is, I love Britain for what it is. They looked after me and my family. I'm dead against people tooling themselves up, going abroad and think they're doing something good for whatever cause they're on. My opinion is, you know, brothers and sisters, if you want to do that, leave your passports behind and good luck to you and carry on. First and foremost, you know, we should live our lives as Muslims. You know, Allah brought us into this world to live as Muslims. You know, we can't just suddenly wake up one morning and think we're going to go do a certain act that's going to martyr us and take us to heaven. You know, Allah knows best at the end of the day, but you know, Allah's given us life to live. So first and foremost, we should live as Muslims and teach ourselves every day what Islam is. So, to the brothers and sisters that have been asking and texting me on that, I'm more for humanitarian. You know, what hurts me is watching the children and the women in Syria suffering. You know, these people are putting out videos. It's live as it gets. It's not like I keep highlighting. It's not film. The images out there are for real. You know, what upsets me is seeing a 5-year-old girl being raped. This upsets me. She can be pink, black, blue as far as I'm concerned, but it's images like that make my blood boil and wants me to help them. So first and foremost, I'm a humanitarian. I want to help in a way of giving aid in what we're doing. So, you know, this is what gets my... It does, you know, religion's got nothing to do with it. It's, you know, it's those images of children, old women, old people out there suffering that have got absolutely nothing to do with nothing and just been caught in this stupidness. You know, we know where it's being funded from and where the things are coming from and who is benefiting. So that's my own personal opinion on it. I mean, everyone's got an opinion, but that's my own personal opinion. Sorry to go on there, BA, but it does get me.
No problem. Julian, let's get you on.
Right, great to be back, guys. And we're talking Brits abroad,
That's
but not that kind.
Yeah.
That you normally see. There are many British citizens fighting across the world. You might ask, what is the difference between a British soldier in a British uniform fighting in Afghanistan and fighting in Iraq to a British citizen who thinks he's doing a good thing by going to fight in Syria? And let's face it, we're talking about Syria tonight. We can compare it to other things, but that is that's the situation.
That's what's happening now. I mean, that's what's been, especially in the media recently or recent times, a lot of talk, a lot of coverage on this issue. So this is what we really want to talk about.
Well,
Highlight Syria, basically,
Let's call a spade a spade. I think a British citizen should have the rights of a British citizen regardless. And what has been happening in these situations when people are returning home from their jihad, as they'll call it, whether I agree with that or not, we'll come on to that. If they're a dual citizen, that has been used against them, and they've had their British citizenship revoked, and that's discriminatory, I would say.
Dual citizens,
as in if they're a citizen of one country,
of two countries,
of Britain and another country, they get the British passport ripped up, and they have to go and seek asylum in whichever country of origin that they seek a passport from. I'm a British citizen and an Irish citizen. If I go off fighting somewhere, I hope that Britain won't revoke my passport and send me back to Ireland. But this is kind of that's the logic, or that's the equivalent. So yeah, I think that's unfair, that's discriminatory, and it shouldn't be happening.
Okay, I mean, but why is the British government taking these steps? Are these individuals that go over, obviously, by their own will, by their own understanding, whatever it is, they go over and they want to fight abroad and help a certain set of people or a country or whatever it may be? Are they now going to be a threat to Britain?
Well,
what's the reality of that?
Having said what I just said and highlighting the unfairness or the hypocrisy, from a selfish point of view, do I really want these jihadi types roaming the streets of London? Personally, no. These are not, from what I can see and from my gut feeling, these are not democracy fanatics that have gone to Syria to impose democracy on that country. What started out in Syria was known as the democracy movement, and we had Friends of Democracy in Syria, which had to change its name when they realised that these people that are trying to overthrow the government there, by and large, especially the foreigners, are not overthrowing the government to give the people of Syria democratic rights. They're overthrowing the government to impose their version of Islam. And Islam is a very beautiful religion, but it has some very ugly interpretations. And the Al-Qaeda types, we know who we're talking about, Al-Nusra, ISIS, have, in my view, an ugly interpretation of Islam, and perhaps many of the British citizens that are going out there to fight, to wage their jihad against the government of Syria. There's many governments that could do with the jihad, but they've chosen Syria. Many of them may come back and turn their fanatical views on the hand that fed them, the British government.
Let me stop you there 1 second, Julian. That's fine, you say that. I mean, you're saying as if it's like, jumping on a plane and taking a holiday to Syria. Who are you fighting for? Who are you representing? There's so many groups out there. For example, I'm going out there, I want to help. Who do I want to help? Who am I helping by going out there? What are my thoughts going through my head? What am I representing? Who am I representing, and what am I trying to prove by going to Syria? You know, for example, say you're out there, you're leading a certain jihadist group. I bump into, I ain't got a clue who you're fighting for. So how do these people get in touch with so-called people and to represent them?
What are your thoughts about, say for example, okay, these individuals that go out there, they want to go there and they want to implement Sharia, or they want to, you know, freedom fight or whatever it might be. I think if an individual has those intentions, sincere intentions, they have no intention of coming back, because you want to go over to a land and implement what you think is right, isn't it? So would these people really, do they really want to come back? Because certain footage I've seen of individuals, you know, we could call them ex-British nationals, they've openly said that, you know, we're not going to come back, we don't want to come back, and we are no threat to Britain anyway.
Right, so because they've bought a one-way ticket.
Pretty much, yeah.
We should let them
if
get on with it.
If you, from an Islamic point of view, if you label yourself a mujahideen, for example, you know, you're not mujahideen and going over there and thinking, okay, you know what, I'm going to come back to jolly on England and get my dole money.
Mujahid.
No, you're not going to think about it. You're not going to think like that.
Yeah.
You know, I want to come back to England, sign on Wednesdays. You know, you're not going to do that.
This is what my point was. If you're really sincere, you leave all that behind. You hand your passport and you go.
This is what I call answering a political question with a religious answer. It doesn't work. You make a good point. If you are going to declare yourself a jihadi and go and live in the Islamic Emirate of Iraq and Sham or whatever it is these people want, well then good luck to you. I don't agree with you. The majority of Syrians don't. I don't think you're helping Syria by going there and setting it on fire and not only fighting the Assad regime, but then fighting amongst themselves, rival rebel factions killing each other. There's nothing fanatical Muslims like more than killing other Muslims.
Maybe, Julian, those individuals that are foreign, that are going over to Syria, obviously they're not Syrian nationals, but they're going over to Syria because they see the Syrian people as their brothers and sisters, and they want to help them.
Sure.
You know, because no one else is helping them. Because, you know, you're a teacher of religious studies. I'm sure you're familiar with the story of the woman that was oppressed, and she cried out for the Muslims to come and help her, and the whole army came. You know, and that army wasn't an army of that town. It came from afar. So, you know, if you think of a mujahideen's mentality, it's not, you know, I have to be a British, or I have to be a Syrian, or I have to be Iraqi.
These guys, yes, absolutely, they are Muslim first, but elements of the opposition are Muslim with a very, very narrow definition of what they interpret Muslim to mean, and the people that they are killing, who they might declare kuffar, are Muslims for all intents and purposes to anyone else that would look at it from an outside perspective. What I see, it's people killing people, but the sectarian aspect of it is very real, and even people of the same sect killing each other.
We touched a little bit on this last week, where it was said that, you know, when a certain set of people want to reach a goal, I mean, in this case, you know, you've got various different factions there. They all got different agendas. Some want democracy, some want socialism, some want Islamic State, and some want secularism, whatever it might be. And for them to reach those particular goals, there has to be a sacrifice, and unfortunately the sacrifice is life, you know, and all these different factions are willing to sacrifice that to get to where they want to get to.
Well, they're willing to sacrifice other people's blood, is the way I would look at it. And for us to sit here and from our armchair in the UK and cheer on elements that are sacrificing other people's blood and setting the country on fire, these are not helping Syria. Like Soggy said, if you want to send humanitarian aid, then you might save some lives. But sending foreigners there with various different agendas to kill each other, you're not helping anyone.
Not helping nobody. But I mean, we titled this British. I mean, being a Pakistani British national and Muslim foremost, what would drive me to go out and do such a thing? I mean, what's driving the brothers here in the UK to go over there if they are going over there? I mean, I've heard that a couple got
Okay,
arrested.
yeah.
But,
I mean,
I haven't
that's the
had
question.
fun.
What motivates someone to become a mujahideen? You could say, you know, what drives them to do that?
All right. Well, here's
Go on.
you know, a personal touch, right? And I tried to work this out, and it's been confusing me for a while. But for example, I work. I'm a teacher by day. At night time, I'm on the door in some pubs and clubs, and you get to know regulars. And I got to know this one guy who I took to be your regular average Joe white guy. He's drunk every weekend. He's, you know, putting his arm around me, intoxicated. How you doing, mate? One night we had a intellectual drunken discussion. Not me, him. And you know, he realised that that I teach religious studies and I know a little bit about the world. And he said to me, you know what, Julian, I'm Muslim. And my father's from Bosnia. And you know what? No, I'm out of touch with my religion, and I don't. And I was surprised. And he told me his Muslim name, and you know, he's like, oh, I feel really bad, and yeah, you know what? I really want to go to Syria and fight there, and I want to become, as he put it, a martyr. I think he may have lost a few times at Scrabble, but yeah, he wants. Yeah,
You want to be fired out the bloody.
yeah. Now, how the hell does a guy like that, who has no clue about his own religion, probably he's a good-hearted guy. You can see that he meant well, and he genuinely wanted to help someone. But how does he conclude that the way to help his fellow co-religionist is to go to a country he probably can't find on the map and become, I think he meant Shaheed. How on earth does that happen? Why is it? Why? And like we said last week, you said, is there a stronger cause in the world at the moment? Well, I don't know that there is, but there is also no hierarchy of oppression. And next door, not far away, there's a little country that's been occupied for over 60 years, and no one knows, or no one wants to go there. We know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay,
But since March 2011, there's been some trouble in Syria, and yes, there is a lot of trouble there. I think there's more now because of these foreigners that have gone there on a whim to become martyrs or whatever it is. Are they really helping? I would say no. Meanwhile, what's going on in Palestine is continuing while the world has its back turned.
Okay, let's put it out there to anyone that might be listening. You know, your thoughts on the so-called freedom fighters that are going out there. Are they right in what they're doing? Can they be justified? Do you back them? Or are you dead against it? I mean, you can phone into the studio on 01189 660382, or you can text in regarding with any thoughts you have on this, if anything, on 07909 567 527. That's 07909 567 527. You want to text in anything regarding British nationals fighting abroad, or your thoughts on it.
Another point I wanted to raise was, this is going back a bit now, this is when Britain or America first went over to Afghanistan back in 2001, 2002. It's going back a bit now. Seems, but it doesn't seem that far away, but it's going back.
Well, the first time Britain went to Afghanistan was probably in the 1700s.
Yeah.
They've been back and forth ever since.
Yeah, well,
the Silk Road.
That's
but okay,
right.
2001.
Right, okay. The point I wanted to make was
Ancient history.
British nationals or foreigners that went over to Afghanistan to fight in the holy war against the invaders, to help the Afghanistan natives against the invaders. They went over there to obviously protect Afghanistan's interests, as they would put it. One thing that I never really understood, maybe, you know, it's just a point. When the individuals got caught, then they wanted to have their rights, as in, you know, I'm a US national or I'm a British national and I've got rights. But I think that if you go over to a place and, you know, you call yourself Mujahideen or whatever, that you take away, you forfeit that right.
You lose your right.
You forfeit that right. I mean, as a Muslim, You know, if you're thinking of Sharia law on an Islamic standpoint, there is no nationality. I mean, you're going over there,
Yeah,
to implement
okay.
Sharia, right? So when you get caught, then all of a sudden you call yourself British or you call yourself American, and I want my rights.
Well, we live in a world where there is international law, and you can't speed down the road and say, "Oh, sorry, I'm Muslim."
Yeah, but that's fine. But when you go over,
Oh, you're saying you forfeited it?
yeah,
I don't think so.
No, but when you go over on your own will, no one's forced you. No government's knocked on your door and said, you got to come and fight with us. No one's enrolled you on.
Okay.
You go over there, and you're going over there as a Muslim with the intention of implementing an Islamic state, and protecting your brothers and sisters. But then when you get caught, then you want to call yourself British. Well, what's your view on that?
Look, I think there is international law, and every country has its laws. And if that were the case, or we took that on face value, then the innocent people in Guantanamo Bay, that would be used against them, and it probably is used against them. Sorry, no, you're a Muslim and you wanted this. You're a terrorist.
So basically, those people in Guantanamo, where they've been captured now, they're no longer looked upon as nationals of Britain or America. They're looked upon as enemies.
They're
enemies of the
enemy
state.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're saying that we are nationals, and we are.
And you seem to be criticising them for it.
No, I'm not criticising. It's just something that I'm just thinking. If I was in that position, I think if I took it upon myself to leave this country and go over to another nation to fight, I've forfeited that passport.
Yeah, it's sincerity.
I don't want no help.
It's sincerity. If you know what you're going over there for, so you go there with the clean intentions of doing what supposedly you're supposed to be doing good in your heart, and you're looking for this status of being a martyr, So you don't go there thinking, oh, if worst case scenario, if I get caught by the US or the British government, I can play the card of being a national, and they can, I can whatever. You give all those rights up. My opinion.
Well, what if MI5 knock on your door tomorrow morning, bundle you off to?
That's different.
And then play this back to you?
No. That's different. I do.
I'm going to feel sorry for you.
I do believe that a lot of individuals, or you could say the majority of individuals, have been captured and imprisoned unlawfully. I mean, we know there's individuals in prisons. They haven't given no trial or anything. They're just locked away.
We have to
and
deal
the keys
with
been thrown away,
don't we?
Sorry?
We have to deal with the norm. I mean, I take your point in theory. If you really are a mujahid and you believe in what you're saying, then perhaps yes, you would forfeit your rights. But I think in the real world, we have international law, and it may not be perfect, but it's the best that we can do. And if we were to abide by that, we'd be doing a lot better than we are now. As for the Sharia, from what I understand of the religion, the Sharia is a law for those who choose to follow it, and you can't enforce it on other people. That would be my problem with people that go over to help the people of Syria.
The Sharia cannot be implemented by voting, by democracy, or can it?
Well, as I said, there are many interpretations of Islam, but there's no.
I mean, let's look realistically. I mean, in Egypt, the majority of people voted in.
Morsi.
You see, the guy's vanished, and I forgot his name.
Yeah,
see what happens? Mohammed Morsi. Yeah,
well, he blew it. He's gone because he blew it, and because
I don't believe so, Julian. I don't believe he blew it. I believe that what happened was, where he got into power, he got more into trying to implement and trying to change the constitution. He got more involved with that than looking at feeding the people. I believe that if he had paid a bit more attention, trying to create some sort of economy, so the people, because the first thing you do as a leader, I believe, in today's society, it might be different centuries ago, but in today's society, all the people want to do is eat.
Yeah.
And if you give them a little bit of bread, a little bit of food, make sure their families are fine, they wouldn't have. Yeah, they wouldn't have complained so much. But where he got so focused onto the constitution side of things, he forgot about the economy. people were jobless.
I think
so.
you're
That's
right.
when they started jumping up and down.
I think you're right. But also, I think what happened in Egypt when they blew, well, as in my view, the shot of having a democratically elected president was that he forgot that democracy has to be an ongoing process, and he thought now that he's got power, he's going to cling to it.
I still believe that the majority was still backing him, and where just the minority.
Well, even if it's 51%, that's not enough to run a country happily.
I don't believe it's.
You know, I mean, how many percent?
I don't believe it was 51%. I believe that there was a bit of a
52.
conspiracy involved as well. A conspiracy in the sense that, you know, Israel didn't want this man to be running that country because obviously he's not looking out for their interests. So they had to get rid of that guy. They had to get rid of that guy. And now, all of a sudden, the army's running the country and Israel's okay now. You know, they're not so worried anymore. You know, but before, it's very complicated. It's very complicated. But let's go back to Syria now.
Okay,
Yeah?
back we go. There's another show
That's
coming
another
up.
show, yeah. Why is it that, like you said, you know, the Syrian conflict started back in 2011?
Yeah. March
Why is
2011.
it that so many foreign fighters or foreign individuals, whether humanitarian aid or picking up arms, are going into Syria in and out freely? Why aren't these same individuals helping the Palestinian cause? Is it because it's more difficult to get into the Palestine, or what is it?
Look, as I said before, I can't understand it, but Muslims always seem to find themselves on the front line in a conflict that benefits the Western powers. Even though they might be the radicals who shout the loudest about how much they hate the West and death to America, death to Israel, Al-Qaeda's never lifted a finger to help the Palestinians. But the Mujahideen in Afghanistan were fighting a enemy of America. In Bosnia, there were Muslims fighting an enemy of America. Same in Kosovo. Some of these hangers-on are now back on the front line in Syria. Just so happens, I can't work it out, but if you look at a map of the Middle East, go to Google Images and put in American bases in the Middle East, you'll see what this is really about. All the countries in red have American bases in them, and the two in blue without American bases in them are Iran and Syria. And Iran is an ally of Syria. That is why this regime must be toppled from the viewpoint of the West, not because of the atrocities that it's committed.
Because it makes Iran into a bit of a loner.
Yes,
Is that what it is?
To put it bluntly,
Divide and conquer, bro.
yeah, to divide and conquer. And this whole situation, I don't think we can understand the situation in Syria without doing a little bit of history on it. And I do love to bring books into the studio. I did a little bit of homework this week, and it's all reminiscent of the show that we had on Palestine. This goes back to Sykes-Picot, when the British and the French divided up the region, when the French took control of Syria and Lebanon, which was one country, and they divided it up. Lebanon was set apart to be some kind of Christian state, a state for the Christians, kind of like when Pakistan became a country for the Muslims, and we know how much I disagree with that. Syria was run under French rule under a system that bred this sectarianism, and the Alawite community, who are the offshoot of the Shia, who Assad and his family are members of that sect. At the time, they were peasants. They were farmers living in the countryside. They were poor. The French imposed a tax that you had to pay in order to not do military service, and they increased it, I think, in the 1960s, so that the military became dominated by the Alawite sect, and also Druze as well, and they wanted to set up this system whereby the people that controlled the country, the people that had the power, although they weren't rich economically, militarily, they were the power. That's how the Alawites became so militarized. That's how, in the vacuum of power, when the French left, the Alawite community dominated the military, and when the Baathists had their coup, and Hafez al-Assad came to power, the father of Assad, it was the Alawites that dominated this section. This sowed the seeds of sectarianism that are now erupting in the conflict and are spilling over into Lebanon, and even God forbid in this country, I'm seeing from people that comment on the conflict sectarian language and talking about Nusayris, which is meaning Alawites, and how we're going to go and kill, annihilate this section of society. As an outsider, I see it as Muslims killing Muslims as usual, par for the course. But for the Takfiri fanatics who are going there to fight, they think, well, no, they're not Muslims. They're worse than an unbeliever. They're some kind of apostate. So this, I think, is the ugly backdrop to the conflict. And as ever, it's the imperial powers who set up a toxic situation for different communities to kill each other when they leave. And do you really want the same Western powers to come back and help you? Okay. Can you really, as a Syrian who wants to run his own country, can you really reach out to the imperial powers that screwed you over decades before? Can you reach out to them for help? They'll never help you.
Can you trust them?
They're just a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Right. Yes. Okay.
For real.
I mean, you've broken down how it started and why it's probably started, but what do you think, or what would have been the best cause for the Syrian people? Because obviously they wanted the Assad regime to go. What could they have done otherwise?
The Assad regime has to go. You can't have one family rule in a country. Bashar al-Assad, who took over from his father,
so it become like a bit of a monarchy, right?
Yeah, and that's just ridiculous, and that's why I suppose Saudi Arabia are helping the rebels, because they just wouldn't stand for that. This is the hypocrisy and the irony that the regimes surrounding that nation are all one family rule, are all corrupt. Yet they're helping to overthrow. They're helping the rebels overthrow their president. The government, the regime in Saudi. Well, it's a regime if you don't like it. It's a government if you do like it. To me, they're all regimes. The British regime, the American regime. They're just like all the rest. But you've got Saudi Arabia arming rebels in Syria to overthrow their president. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia are arming the government of Bahrain to kill the rebels in that country. The Prime Minister of Bahrain has been there since 1960, and he's from the same family that's been running that ever since the British installed them. So it's all about who benefits. But I think your original question was what could have been done better.
Yeah, what course should the people have taken? I mean, it apparently started off with a few young boys going missing or something, and then it escalated to something else, and it went to something else. What could the oppressed people, you could say, of Syria do?
Every country
to change
has the right to overthrow its government, and yes, Assad must go, and he's lost the right to run his country. In 2011, people were marching on the streets. Kofi Annan had a peace plan in motion. We've spent 3 years of people killing each other, and we're almost back to square one where it was, where the UN are now asking people to get around the table and negotiate to a peace. This could have been happening 3 years ago. Foreign-backed militants entering en masse did not help the situation. Saudi Arabia, in my view, tell me if I'm wrong. If a peace comes out of this, and you've sacrificed 10 or 100,000 lives, it's now 110,000 lives to get a better life for Syria. Well, only time will tell if that has been worth it. But if it comes from the influence of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Britain, America, and Israel, who have entered the war, who struck Syria last year, who struck against the government, and rebels in Syria, the Free Syria Army, called on Israel to enter the war out of desperation. You can understand the desperation of a people, but you can't make a pact with the devil, literally. It's going to be a very short-sighted help that you're going to receive from Britain, America, and Israel. They're not there to help you. If Britain and America overthrow this government or intervene and install a newcomer, I guarantee in 10 years, 15 years, they'll be back to overthrow him. They'll use them for what they're worth, like they used Saddam Hussein, and they'll be back to overthrow them. They've done it again and again in the Middle East. That's why the Middle East must not trust the West to help them in this situation. But Russia have an influence in the region, China too, and these countries have never stolen, well, not for a couple of centuries, haven't stolen anything from the Middle East. And Russia, Putin showed
But I think
his strength this year.
With Russia, they were trying to maybe steal, what you can say. I mean, back in the late 80s when they invaded Afghanistan, I think that would have been, if they had succeeded. If they had succeeded, that would have been a platform for them to actually do something, because I believe that their original plot was to obviously take over Afghanistan and then slowly move over towards the Middle East. You know, that's what the original plot was.
Look, communism was an ideology, a bit like the international jihad that was meant to go worldwide. But Russia is a little bit of a different animal. Russia of today is different to the Soviet Union of the 1980s. But I'll still take the Soviet Union over America any day. Even more so, Russia in the role that it's playing today has been crucial. Did stop, prevent another war in the Middle East, another imperialist adventure. And I think the genuine Syrian opposition, forget the outsiders and the lunatic fanatic jihadis that want Sharia law worldwide, the genuine Syria is a modern Mediterranean country. It's not ready to be run like a Islamic emirate. It's not Afghanistan. Whether the people there are majority Sunni Muslim, there's 18 different religious and ethnic sects that live together, ideally peacefully. You can't impose a...
Well, it's a very ancient country. You know, it's got a lot of vast history to it. So, you know, you're going to get all kinds of backgrounds and, you know, cultures and religions, and, you know, you're going to have all that. But
yeah,
it's,
do you think it go back to normality if there is such a thing of normality?
Normality.
When the dust settles.
Yeah.
If it settles.
I mean, where are we going to come out of this? Down the line, one possibility would be a country divided up, a state for Sunnis, Kurdish region.
Is a country that big to do something like that?
Is that?
Is a country that big to do something like that?
Well, as I said, it has.
I think that's what
it has 18 different national, religious, and national ethnicities. Under the French mandate, there was an area called the Alawite State. Where, on the coastal mountainous region where these peasant people were living. You've got Druze there, you've got Kurdish people, Circassians. I would love to see a situation where call it normality or whatever you will, where the Syrian people live side by side, Christian, Muslim, Druze, etc. As I understand, they did to an extent from the 60s to the 2000s. It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And the Alawite community, who lived as an oppressed minority for so long, have lived in fear of one day the Sunni Muslims taking power, whether through the Muslim Brotherhood. You had the uprising in the 1980s, 82 I think it was, and the Hama massacre, where Hafiz al-Assad, the father, quashed an uprising brutally and killed between 10 to 20,000 people. These things are living in the memory, and they're bubbling up under the surface. Yeah, fresh in the mind. But you can't, and this is what I say when you answer a political question with a religious answer, you're always going to get it wrong. Someone commented on the Facebook poster that we had up, the definition of jihad is to impose the Islamic law, or fight until all the lands that were once under the Muslim rule are now back under the Muslim rule. And I said, well, good luck getting Spain back then. Spain was once a Muslim country. It's been 600 years. Where's your jihad in Spain? We all know that this is illogical and weak methodology and a very simplistic understanding. There's no simple answer for this. There's no simple answer for how you run a country like Syria. But we must step towards peace, and sending foreigners there with a one-track mind and a limited understanding, who think they've got the answer. Islamic State. No, not your version of the Islamic State. My version.
It's a classic, Julian. It's a classic divide and rule. They want to break. Yeah. They want to break it up, segment it, make it weak.
Spot on.
Make it weak so they can come in anytime they want. And the only thing in their way is Iraq.
Well,
Iran. Sorry.
Yeah, Libya, I believe, is a good example. The people were crying for Gaddafi to go. He went. Actually, he was killed by his own people. And now the country is, from what I'm hearing, it's all over the place.
It has no direction.
There's no direction.
Yes, there is an example, and the mystery there is, how did China and Russia allow that one to slip through the net and watch the West enter and topple another secular socialist leader who.
Well, this is the problem. This is what I think is really unfair, is this socialist thing, because Libya is not a poor country. It has a lot of resources, as you know, and the population is not big either. If those resources were managed correctly, every Libyan should probably be living a middle class or a millionaire lifestyle. Just about, you can say, or comfortably, very comfortable.
Yes.
But where you're preaching socialism, but you're living like a millionaire yourself, or gazillionaire, and then your people are living like peasants, what kind of socialism is that?
That's correct. But as ever, Gaddafi was toppled by the West, not for any bad thing he did, but for perhaps the few good things he did. He wanted. He was when the Arabs turned their back on him, he called out to Africa, and he became a big pan-Africanist. He wanted a one single currency for Africa, which might have rivaled the euro. I think he was going to attach it to the gold, so it would have been a currency that was actually worth something.
Yeah. I've actually spoken to Libyans regarding this matter, and a lot of the things that you read about Gaddafi, when you get married, you get this, and when you'll get this house, and you'll get this free education, and you'll get this healthcare. They said yes, everything there was written, but none of it was ever implemented.
Good in theory, but not. But
so you writ it all down, and you're preaching this to the world, but in theory, none of this is actually happening. Yeah. So this is why I think this is going back to the point I made earlier. You have to feed your people. If you don't, they will turn on you. And it's not even about religion. It's not even about politics. They just want to eat.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you think about this nation, if everyone went hungry, no one would give a damn about religion. No one would care about politics. The streets will be in chaos.
And on that note, I think that in Syria, the people need to be fed.
Poverty.
Because when you are starving,
Yeah.
that's when you start
Yeah.
to look at your neighbour
Yeah.
and say, why has he got food and I
Yeah.
don't? And if he's a Shia or he's a Sunni or he's different to you, that's going to bolster the flames of sectarianism.
That's right. I mean, the Prophet ﷺ, you know, he's warned us about poverty. He warned us about poverty. You know, pray that no, you don't fall into poverty, because poverty, once a man hits poverty, you're capable of doing anything. You know, and why would you want to impoverish your people?
Yeah, well, Tyson said it about his pigeons, didn't he? He said they live together, but when they're hungry and he feeds them, they'll kill each other for that food. And
Yeah.
we're very animalistic when we give in to
Yeah.
these things like hunger.
I just want to touch on a few short videos that I've been watching
Okay.
with a little bit of research I've been doing, and it's touching on what we discussed earlier as well. One of the videos was a young Swedish Muslim, one Swedish Muslim, young guy, must have been barely 25 years old, and he got married to a British girl who's actually gone over there, and the couple is actually living over there in Syria now, and they've taken up arms for Islamic State. But they was asked a question, you know, would you ever want to go back? And he goes, no, we don't want to go back. This is not even our intention. We don't want to go back. So this is going back to what we touched on earlier. You know, if you do take this course, you know, you need to really think about, do you really forfeit your right, you know, to have that red passport, you know?
Yeah, and maybe that's more respectable than, as you said, going over there, waging your jihad, having your little jihad holiday, Brits abroad, and then coming back home and going back to your normal life and saying, well, I'm a British citizen now. What happens in Syria stays in Syria. Is either one right? I don't know. I don't think the majority of Syrians, and there's no way of knowing this for sure, but I don't think the majority of Syrians feel or would want the world and his wife, as you say, to descend on Syria and start waging a jihad.
That's a good question. That's a good point, actually.
If they wanted an Islamic State, they'd have had it by now.
Do you think, or do you feel that the suffering people of Syria actually want outsiders to come and fight their battle?
I think they want food.
Oh yeah, that's
I
the
think
first.
they want blankets.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
I doubt.
Yeah, but
that's a necessity.
Yeah,
they
but
need
come on,
that.
but come on. The regime is throwing bombs over their heads. Yeah.
Well,
So
is
who's
it
going
throwing
to
more bombs or less bombs now that there's
the
jihadis there?
Who's going to protect them from the bombs? Who's going to protect them against the regime? You know, when a regime comes in, knocking on your door and massacring your family, who's going to protect them from that?
Well, look, if the jihadi who doesn't intend to come home and isn't even worried about losing his own life, he probably doesn't care about protecting other people's life either, because they're all shuhada, as he's going to understand it. If they're that set on waging their jihad, but I think that you've got a situation where people are putting their interpretation of what they think Islam means into another country, and thinking they've got the correct answer.
It's a made up concept that they put in their mind, and they're trying to justify it for themselves. Now, I was always taught to, live as a Muslim, correct myself in life, and have that understanding of what a Muslim means. A Muslim means to live a peaceful life, to give, by living the right way, by setting example to other people of how a Muslim should live. But these people out here seem to, I don't know what gets into their mind, trying to justify martyrdom where they haven't got a clue or understanding of what it really means. It doesn't mean picking up an AK-7 going into the next country and shooting the next man. You don't even know what the next man's beliefs are or what you're fighting over.
Good point there, Soggy, again.
What are we fighting over?
Good point there, excellent point there. A lot of the foreign fighters, when they cross that border to go into Syria, all they do is take orders. Now, how do you know that who you've been told to kill is who you think it might be?
Who is the enemy? Who is the common enemy? This is my point. Who you don't know nobody out there.
And
there's
also,
about 7-8 different groups of jihadists out there.
Also, the foreign fighters that go over there, you know, obviously, you know, Islam is not limited to knowledge. I don't believe that, as many people like to say, that you need to be very knowledgeable or stuff like that. I don't believe so. I believe that Islam foundation is the belief. You know, I think that comes first. That's the most important thing. So, but a lot of the fighters that go over across that border, they cannot speak a word of Arabic.
Exactly.
How do you know who you're killing, or how do you know that who you're killing is who you think you're killing?
But this is my point. This is what I'm trying to say. You know, what's driven you to go out there, and who's driven you to go out there? Whose side are you taking? What are you fighting for?
As I said before, it's very mysterious how everyone all of a sudden understands that there's a jihad in Syria, and the guy down the pub somehow knows that he wants to go and fight there. Bashar al-Assad's biggest propaganda bargaining chip was always, I'm fighting terrorists. If you watch any of the Syria national news, it's always 5 terrorists were killed in the town with terrorists. Terrorists. He sounds more like George Bush than anyone I've heard.
For real.
But you know, whether there wasn't any Al Qaeda in Syria in March 2011, there is now. Yeah. They think it's all over, and they're killing each other. So much so that it's even being theorized now that this ISIS, Islamic State in Syria, in Iraq and Syria, is being let into the country by the Assad regime itself. It's certainly being sent by someone else, but it's being let in by the Syrian regime because it facilitates his propaganda war.
Of course it does, yeah.
And that there are terrorists in the country. And secondly, how do you fight two lions? You let them fight each other first, and then you fight the one that's beaten and
the one that's wounded.
Dying.
The one that's wounded, you take him on.
So that's what's going on, and these people that all think they're helping are really setting the country on fire. Which is what the enemies of the Muslims want, to sit back and watch Muslim killing Muslim while they can continue with their projects in the Middle East.
Hence why they're sitting back and doing nothing.
They're laughing.
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are.
You touched on about your mate outside the pub and wants to go fight the holy war, yeah? I believe for young Muslims, it's very glamorous.
Yeah.
It's very glamorous. Glamorous in the sense that... you know, it shows you know, your manhood in a way that, you know, you've got it in you to go and do that and sacrifice your life or fight or kill or whatever it is. So in a way, there is a lot of glamorizing done. I remember when I was only maybe 8 years old or 9 years old, I watched Rambo 3, yeah, and I always understood that I was a Muslim, but when I watched Rambo 3. And I saw those Muslims fighting, and then the man says it. He goes, "We're holy warriors, and we've already declared ourselves dead, so it doesn't matter." And I was like, "Wow," you know.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, actually. And you know, where did these ideas come from? It's the media, and there is no doubt that jihad, however you interpret it, is part of Islam. Let's never deny that. Nor should we. But which jihad are you fighting? Why is it the one that suits your enemy in the long run? Why is it so often that it's a Muslim killing another Muslim?
Lack of understanding, lack of belief. You know, it's about heart, not mind. You know, people like glamorizing the Rambos made by the Americans. You know, it's all. No, I know what you're saying.
I think you know what I'm saying. When you're young, your blood is hot. You know, you wanna.
But this is what's happening with our kids at the moment. You know, the ones that got arrested the other day, they were 20, 21. I mean, what the flip are you lot doing in Syria? You know, you have no understanding of life itself, let alone what jihad means. You know, someone's got into their mind and something's obviously triggered that. Maybe, inshallah, they're innocent. They just probably went over there to feed the poor, you know, to do good work. But, you know, let's pray that was the case. But, you know, if your intentions are something else, then I cannot for the life of me understand that. I can't.
Well,
you know, who's you're going out there fighting on what side? Who you representing? Because at the end of the day, is Muslim fighting Muslim. What Muslim are you on? You don't know. You know, someone hands you an AK-7 and say, blow his head off. And he could be your brother. And, you know, the guy giving you the gun is your enemy. You know, who do you trust? At the end of the day, we're British Pakistanis. We ain't got a clue about how we live in Syria. There's nothing about that. I don't know no Syrians. On a personal level, where the brothers phone me up, yo, sorry, come over, we need your hand. You know. But this is, for the life of me, I can't understand that.
Here's the bigger picture here. Here's the hypocrisy and the irony that Britain is funding the opposition, the rebels in Syria, whatever that may be. They paused their funding, which is supposedly non-lethal aid. This is like giving a teenager money for his birthday and saying, well, don't spend it on alcohol. What if you give money to armed gangs, what are they going to spend it on? They're going to spend it on arms. Where are they getting the arms from? Saudi Arabia. But Britain is funding rebels in Syria. Some of them are defected army officers from the Syrian army that became the FSA. I respect them and their right to overthrow their own government. Other elements are your An-Nusra Front and your ISIS and the umbrella term, which is Al Qaeda. You can't fund that in one country and then complain when that mentality comes back to your own country and commits atrocities. Because these people, some of them, have a worldwide view that it's just jihad until we conquer the world. Whether you agree with that or not, well, that's a different matter. But the two guys that murdered Lee Rigby in Woolwich, who are seen as disgusting, and so they should be. And of course, the British government must do something to stop the radicalisation of Muslims. And this is terrible. Had those two individuals gone to fight in Syria, and they strike me as the kind that might have been of that mentality, William Hague and co. would have been paying them money to do so. But when they did it on their own doorstep, it's not good. So that's, for me, is the hypocrisy. Yet again, it's the Western powers that are not to be trusted. They have had their hand in this region since decades ago, and they're still having a detrimental influence to this day.
So, with all that being said, with everything we've said about foreigners going over into Syria, well, we can say Syria now because that's where everyone's going. Where do you think, what sort of role should the British government play in letting them back? I mean, should they be allowed back? Should they have their passports revoked? Should they get locked up? What should happen?
I really am in two minds on this one. Usually, I'm very opinionated, and I'll be very sure.
Me personally, I respect. If you're going to go over there, and you're going over there for your jihad, then you've sort of like sacrificed your right to come back. Because if you're going to go to another nation to implement Sharia state, that means you've got no need for democracy. You've got no need.
How can you justify Syria as jihad? How can you justify that?
Because the you could say the Sunni Muslims have been oppressed there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our Sunni brothers.
That's what I hear
on Facebook.
Okay. Oh yeah. No. Okay. I mean,
One Ummah FM you're listening to.
yeah. Well,
our Sunni brothers.
This is it, isn't it? I mean, this is why they're going. I'm not gonna.
I know you're not saying that.
I'm not
But
gonna.
this is.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm
I
not
know.
going to pretend that it's something
Okay.
else. Basically, the Sunni Muslims, the majority in Syria, okay, have been oppressed. Okay, this is what their view is. They've been oppressed, and the people there have been oppressed. So they want to implement some sort of state that would favour them, or have an Islamic state. That's what they want. They don't want to have a leader that they say is not even a Muslim,
Well,
who's a
you know,
blasphemer,
Yeah.
and a blaspheming regime. They don't want that. A blaspheming regime is, how can I say, over them, is running things, where they're on the huck, but they're not. So
Well, this is why you can't answer a political question with a religious answer. And there's sectarianism even
But this
within
is
the
why-
Sunni Muslims.
I hear that.
Happy
I hear
Milad
that.
an-Nabi to everyone, by the way,
I
for
hear
this
what you're
week.
saying. I hear what
Those who celebrate.
I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
I hear what you're saying, but those people that go over there to fight, they're going there from a religious standpoint. They're not really going there for anything else.
Well,
Who's ordered this? Who said come over?
the
This is-
media.
Thank you.
CNN,
Thank
Fox
you.
News and Al Jazeera.
I rest my case.
Yeah. Who's ordered it?
Who's
But-
ordered this as a holy war?
From Sheikh CNN. But the let's look at it another way. From the British perspective, you're saying these guys have revoked it or lost their right to British passport. I'm surprised.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying that, Julian. I'm not saying that they've revoked it. What I'm saying is that if that was me, this is me now, and I say, okay, I'm a holy warrior now. Okay, I'm going to implement a Sharia state. I'm going to go to another land, and I'm going to implement a Sharia state.
Yeah.
That means I don't have no need for democracy. I have no need for this red passport. I have no need for the system.
This is
I'm going over there to implement something that's pure from God.
This is my point.
Isn't that the thought of how?
The sincerity? That's what I'm saying to you. You have to be a jihadist, a holy warrior. You give up all your rights. Your sincerity is your heart. You're doing it for the sake of Allah. So the last thing you're worried about is any passport, any benefits, anything else, anything like that. That's what I'm saying to you. It's all about intentions, isn't it? What are you going there for? Just to show your face or trying to give yourself a reputation that I'm a somebody, and then you come back crying when they chuck you in a cell saying I'm a British national. Please set me free. You give up them rights when you grow yourself some balls and think you're a jihadist. You're going to fight out there for no common cause. No one's called you out there. It's not a holy war. Well, my opinion, it's not a holy war. What are you fighting for?
Well, if you have that. If these people did what they say they believe in, then maybe they would act like that. But do we really want that interpretation of Islam that almost suggests, well, you can't be British and a Muslim? Which are you? There's as much as Islam has a
if you don't like the country, don't like the law, get lost.
Sure.
Go live somewhere else.
But
you can't have best of both worlds, brother. You cannot have that.
But you seem to be doing it very well.
Who?
You're living in the UK as a happy British Muslim.
Alhamdulillah.
Why? But that doesn't mean that you.
I don't have extreme views. I respect the law of the land, hence
Okay.
me being a free man. If I had no respect and I was out there,
Do you acknowledge that jihad is part of Islam?
without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay, so there might be a circumstance.
If someone comes after my family, and then it's a different story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, as Muslim Syrian people are a Muslim ummah. We're a ummah. I totally understand all the aspect.
And I'm not saying that.
But it's a civil war. There's Muslims killing Muslims.
Yeah.
There's different sects killing different sects.
That's the
It's
point.
not a crusade of Christianity against the Muslims.
Yeah.
If
And-
that was the case, if it's split down the middle, then yes.
And as I say, I think every British citizen has the right to that passport.
Of course it does. Yeah.
And
Well, I feel
don't
they
think,
give up that right when they decide to go against the Queen and country.
I don't think you do. I mean, you could be mentally ill, and
Obviously,
and-
we have. Obviously, that's
No,
you're stepping
Okay,
on
got-
you have
we
to
got-
deal with-
we got- we-
you have to
we-
deal with norms. Look,
We've got a good text. We've got
Here
good
we
text
go.
coming here. It says, Salam, who are we to judge the Muslims who go abroad? Allah knows the best. The Jews who live in Europe get called up to kill Palestinians. Should their passports get revoked? Oh,
Okay, great point. There's a different
Different angle
perspective
of it,
on it. Yes, there are Jewish people who hold dual citizenship who regularly go and fight in the Israeli Defense Forces and kill Palestinians. I disagree
But
with
that-
that,
but
as you know, but and they should be dealt with as criminals, just as should any Muslim who intends.
But they have an
terror
ally
activity.
of joining the army, you know, they're being called into
Okay,
an
they
army.
ha- they
so
have-
they have a regime with their protocol,
which
they have-
might legitimize
which
it.
yeah, but, not that it does, but yes,
Okay.
but they got an avenue to get out. That they've been
Okay.
called up. They've been called up as you would do into an army.
Yeah.
we still haven't really had a proper answer or a proper solution as to what, course the Syrian people should have taken,
Well, you know what?
to get rid of the Assad regime, because we still haven't answered that question. To me,
You can never
to
answer
me,
that
no, but to
question.
me, it always comes back down to fighting again.
No.
I mean, how do you topple a regime like that, Soggy?
It's down to education, bro. There's too
Education
much,
of what?
There's too much propaganda. They're filling up people's heads with so much rubbish that they're fighting each other. They have no concept that they're damaging each other. They're damaging their own country. They don't understand.
Soggy, these people have been oppressed for decades.
No, but they were what? So they're happy now, are they?
No, they're not. Of course, they're not happy.
Of course they're not
Of
happy.
course they're
That's
not
why
happy.
it's going to get broken up. That's why they need to get to Iran, these Western powers. That's why the British and Americans are sitting back and laughing, because they know they're killing each other. Soon Syria is going to be stagnated. It's going to be, instead of one big country, it's going to be 6-7 countries, for easier for America and the British to go into, can manipulate, because they need to get to Iran. Iran is a major player in this. They want to get to Iran. There's no way, without taking Syria out, they can touch Iran. You got to see the bigger picture. Is to get to Iran. Iran got the nuke, bro. They just say, "You coming for us? We'll take the whole world out." That's the bigger picture. This is what it's all about. Little games. They put little things in your heads,
Yeah.
and to me, that's what it's all about.
So yeah, I'm getting texts coming through here. Mention the prediction for the Syrian conflict, and will the civil foreign war be continuing for many more years? That's from Afshin. Thank you very much. I think I agree with what you've just said. Worst case scenario, this could be divided up into 6-7 different statelets, whether one wants to be an Islamic state, an Islamic emirate. Does it really help the Muslims, which is
No.
one ummah, as you say, to have a
No.
little Islamic state
No,
in
it
the
doesn't.
in the northeast of Syria?
No, it doesn't.
Or does it shoot them in the foot?
It shoots them in the foot. Of course it does.
The Khilafah is gone, I'm sorry to say. And you're not going to bring it back by starting in Syria. I think maybe it'll happen when Jesus comes back, who knows. But what you need now is unity among the Muslims, whether they're Sunni or Shia, and that might be a bitter pill to swallow for
thank you.
people in the reason. But you need to extend your arm.
This is
to
a sense.
to your
That's
Shia
another.
brother before
No,
you
that's
extend it
that's
to the
another sensitive. That's
Judeo-Zionist-
another sensitive.
the Christian
That's a very.
Judeo-Zionist
That's
alliance.
another sensitive or a controversial view, because if you're trying to get different Islamic groups to come together, which is fine, but who's going to be running things?
Look,
They all can't be kings. You got only have one. You cannot have 4 or 5 different groups and coexisting. I mean,
everyone says that, we'll have
let me give
100.
you an example of even our town, Reading. Now you've only got a few masjids in this town. Okay, they cannot sit around a table for more than 5 minutes. So how? Just because they have different Islamic views, right? So how are you going to get
I don't know.
National powers.
a whole nation of so many different sects to come together? Who's going to be controlling that nation? It's the strongest one, isn't it? The strongest one is always going to be the one.
Every time, and I'm not just talking about Muslims, the whole region, Muslims, Christians, non-believers, whoever lives there together. But the Arab people from Morocco to Iraq do share a language. They do, whether Christian or Muslim, they believe in one God. And every time someone has come along to try and unite them, the Western imperial powers have tried and succeeded to divide them. Whether it's Sunni against Shia, Arab against Kurd, or Berbers wanting independence in North Africa, or Assyrians, Christians, any of these minority or different identities are always being used to divide the people. And I don't know who is going to come along to say, I am that one leader. It will take someone like Jesus to do it. But as soon as the people stop killing each other and start seeing who the real enemy is, they will have a better chance.
But Julian, even when Isa alayhi salam comes, even when Imam Mahdi comes, I mean, a lot of people claim Imam Mahdi is going to be for them. It's written. Everyone's like this. The Shias are claiming there for him. The Sunnis are claiming there for him. So everyone's claiming that he will be for them.
He's their savior.
But it all comes down to one thing again. There will be bloodshed again. They're not going to come and right, everybody, this is how it's going to be done. There's going to be war again. There's always going to be war, and this is going back to the point. The strongest group always takes charge. It's just the way human nature is.
By the time that group gets together, there'll be nothing left. Absolutely nothing left. Just looking at this Middle East news now on BBC, 500 dead today. Syria, lower that, Jasper.
They're fighting each other, the rebels.
Yeah, no, lower it. What's the headline say? Lower it. A bit more. Lower. Up, higher. Yeah, rebel clashes leaves almost 500 dead. That's on daily basis.
So these are rebels killing rebels.
They're killing each other. They have no understanding on who's who. They see next man carrying a gun. As soon as he lifts a gun, you're shooting him, thinking that, boy, he's going to kill me. That's what I'm saying to you. No one knows what's going on. They're putting all this madness in your head.
Sunnis killing different types of Sunnis.
Yeah, I mean, let's move on to another country for a bit. Let's move on to Afghanistan now. The troops are going to be withdrawing, or they are withdrawing now. Okay, I think by the end of this year they'll all be out, isn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, 10 years on, and
right now,
but no different.
What do you think? What do you think about this? I mean, they were in there for 10 years. They're leaving. What has it achieved? What's going to happen is, as soon as that last vehicle leaves Afghanistan, the sectarian violence will start again, and the strongest group will win, and then Taliban will take over the country again. Yeah, that is what is going to happen.
Well, Bush went there to get the terrorists, didn't he? And the same people that he tried to kill in Afghanistan, they're now and in Iraq. The Americans and the Brits are now in bed with Al Qaeda in Syria. This is the ridiculousness of the situation.
I think this whole Al Qaeda thing is just some made up.
It's made up. Of course it is. It's just
It's just some made up. It's like a pen name. I think it's just a pen name or something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are groups that claim they're affiliated to Al Qaeda.
No, because they would, because it's glamorized.
Yeah, we know what it started out.
Yeah.
It's the American Army's armed Muslim wing.
Yeah.
Originally. Well, what about the world going back to all Westerners get out of the Middle East, and then all Easterners get out of the West? Look, and go back to anyone can live in a country if they're there to live peacefully. With the local. I'm talking about troops.
Troops, yes. Troops should get out. Yeah. The Muslims living in this country are not here, hopefully, as troops. No. If they are, then I don't want them here.
Well,
I don't welcome them.
I mean, we can tell you this, Julian. When our grandparents or great grandparents came over in this country in the 50s, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. They came here to work, to earn, and
you've been here longer than me. Wow!
And then their intention, was basically to make money and go back, but that never materialized. So and the generations.
Continues.
The holiday continues, I guess. Yeah.
Well, look, I think anyone is welcome in a country where they're not here to rape and pillage, but that is the agenda of the West. In the Middle East, they're there to take their things. They're there to install puppet governments and regimes that are going to do what they want, and
it's all about power and control. It's about controlling the oil. It's influence. It's all the power of money. That's what it is, isn't it? At the end of the day, that's what it is. Afghanistan. What's in Afghanistan? The poppy fields.
Yeah.
What were the so-called Taliban doing? Anybody that was growing them, they were burning the fields down. They were giving people who own these fields the chance of either knocking down the poppy fields and growing vegetables. If they continued to grow the poppies, they would take the land off them. This is what's going on, and this was affecting America big time, because what's the heroin value in America? It's X billion trillion that they couldn't afford to lose it. So what Taliban was doing was getting rid of these fields, knocking and burning them down, hence affecting Americans big time.
So the Taliban were useful while they were fighting the Russians, but,
Of course it was,
but
yeah.
they weren't useful when they were
When they-
preventing
no.
drugs. Just as the British jihadis are useful when they're out there trying to topple Assad, but they're not useful when they come home.
When they come home, correct.
And this is just Muslims yet again taking it from from Britain and America and being used as pawns. And don't let yourself get used like that. See the bigger picture. Don't be so short-sighted that you
Or
think
narrow-minded.
the only way is jihad in Syria.
It's
There's a bigger picture going on.
It's narrow-mindedness.
And these people are take them for face value. They're saying on cameras, "Oh, we're here in Syria, but we're coming for you next."
Yeah.
West. And it's like, well, no, you're not, because we've used you, and now we're finished with you. And I think
I
that's
just want to quickly
go
get
on.
through some text, right?
I've got loads of
Here we
tests
go.
It
coming.
says
through.
here
1 second.
from
One
our
other caller.
friend. Okay, it says here one question for the talk show. We keep talking about wars and jihad. Shouldn't we be talking more on peace and helping people? Show non-Muslims this is what we are about and encourage them.
1 second, Baba. Hold the
Islam.
thought. We've got someone live.
Okay.
Did you know what you're talking about, then, bro? Sorry, you're just going off on one. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, caller, you can go ahead. Hello?
Hi, hello.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Am I on air?
You're live on air, sister, correct?
Okay, I think right now you guys are switched to Afghanistan, but last time I was listening, you were talking about Syria.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the same concept of why are we fighting each other, and why are people going out there, etc., etc. That's what it is. So.
Okay. Well, I'm originally a Syrian. I was born in Syria, and I just wanted to say my issue. I have a big issue with British Muslims coming to
Coming
Syria
to your
fight.
country.
Yeah, specifically when they say we have to help our brothers and sisters in Syria, because I think they're forgetting they don't understand who Syrians are or what makes up Syria, and the fact that only 70% of Syrians are Muslim, the rest are Christian, some are Jewish. Like, Syrians are a very diverse group of people. So when they say, we're going to help our brothers and sisters, they're not actually helping Syrians. They have their own
Their own
interests.
personal agendas, correct. That's what we touched on earlier, right? Yes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to.
But sister,
that-
sorry, sister, but don't you think that that's a bit of a nationalistic way of thinking? Saying that brothers and sisters are just helping Muslims. I don't believe that those individuals going over to Syria just want to go over just to help Muslims. I believe they want to maybe help the country as a whole. Whether their viewpoint is correct, that's another thing. But to have that approach of you saying that, I believe it just came a bit nationalistic to me. That's all it was.
No, it's what we. Sorry, sister. It's what we touched on earlier. She's saying that we don't need outsiders' help because they're not helping. They're making the situation worse by coming there. Is that correct?
Exactly. Exactly. And my opinion is that when they do return to England, they should be considered for possibly for war crimes, for killing other Syrians. We don't know what kinds of things they're doing in Syria, and they're obviously carrying weapons with the intention to fight. And I don't. And
Yeah, this was exactly my point. Yeah, go on, Baba.
Can I just ask another question? Okay.
okay.
How would you have this issue dealt with? What do you think the best course would have been for the Syrian people? Obviously, they weren't happy with the regime being in power for so long, or is that not accurate? What would have been the best course?
Well, initially, I don't think it started because they weren't happy with the regime being around so long. It really started when the new president, Bashar al-Assad, started his new neoliberal economic policies, where he opened up Syria to trade with Turkey and with Jordan. And traditionally, the Syrian regime has always supported rural Syria, has always supported farmers and peasants by subsidizing them. But when Bashar al-Assad opened up Syria to these outside countries, the farmers could no longer compete. They were no longer subsidized. The only people benefiting from this new policy were rich Sunni Muslims in the cities. That's why the revolution.
So this is going back to this is going back to what we said about not feeding your people.
Yeah. So the revolution initially started as a non-sectarian thing in Daraa, in a rural part of the country. I think right now the worst thing you can do in a civil war is add more arms and weapons. So I suggest, like right now, Russia and the U.S. and all the parties, all the outside countries should stop arming both sides, and there should be an immediate ceasefire.
Immediate ceasefire, but we know that's not going to happen because it's not benefiting the Western world. I mean, leave the last was reducist. I mean, what's your advice to people that want to go from here and represent Syria or as a jihadist? What would you say to them?
That's a good question.
Stay away, basically, because you're not wanted.
Well, my advice is obviously is to revisit their understanding of Islam and the meaning.
Thank you. Correct.
The meaning of jihad, as we all know, is the greater jihad is the struggle against yourself, your nafs, against your ego, and God says He does not change a condition of a people until they change what is within themselves. So I would advise these people to work on themselves and work on their own communities at home in England, in London, for example, before they think about and if they can make their own communities better, then inshallah that will have a domino effect.
Sister, amazing words, great, thank you. I think we're thinking on the same lines there. MashaAllah, thank you for your call, inshallah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, assalamu alaikum.
From the horse's mouth, that's a Syrian.
Stay away, they're telling you stay away. So,
and not only the Sunni Muslims that want to help their Sunni brothers, there are many foreign factions descending upon Syria. As I understand, there are even right-wing Greeks and Russians, Christians who are fighting in Syria, who see themselves as some kind of warriors there to defend the Christian minority, who are very fearful of this revolution, and we can understand why.
I believe now, where there's a war waged in a certain country, it becomes a platform to try to implement whatever you stand for. Yes. And maybe this is an opportunity.
Another caller. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, assalamu alaikum. You're live on the show. Yeah, you're live on the show.
Go ahead.
No, because there's a 30-second delay.
Turn your radio down.
Turn your radio down.
If you turn your radio down, you've got a 30-second delay on that. deep voice. Is that?
We've all got deep voices, mate.
You've got Baba and Soggy. Go ahead. I'm only a guest.
You're speaking to Julian directly.
Go ahead. Hello, Ash. Okay. Thank you for your call, Ash, and I'm glad you're listening to my show. Sorry.
It's Julian's show now.
I'm joking. No, look, my comment about Islam and the interpretation of Islam, as regular listeners will know, I'm an open-minded secular agnostic who is learning about Islam with these guys' help. But the fact is, as much as we like to say one ummah, even the Prophet predicted there will be 72 sects of Islam, and there's already that many. And you've got various factions in Syria. I mentioned before 18 different ethnic and religious communities. You can't take one interpretation of Islam, and I suspect that many of the rebels may be Salafist in their interpretation of Islam. This is the ideology that came out of Saudi Arabia, Wahhabism. Which is a very strict, narrow-minded interpretation of the religion, which is fine if it's your interpretation. But if you want to then inflict it on other people,
some people say it's to the point.
It's to the.
But Julian, just I understand. I take on what everything you say and agree with you. I want to just go back to exactly what you were saying. You were saying you were implying that, and I'm not saying I disagree with you at all. I'm thinking more on the lines of agreeing with you. But this idea that you raised earlier, that you cannot say, okay, I live in this country, I want the democracy, I'm a law-abiding citizen, and at the same time propound the idea of jihad. You were implying earlier that that's that those two ideas are mutually exclusive. I wanted you to expand on that particular idea and exactly your rationale behind it. Do you see what I mean?
Okay, I think Baba was saying
I think that was me. I think that was me.
Yeah, I think that was Baba's view. I think you can be a British Muslim and believe in jihad, which is part of the religion. Baba was saying, if you interpret it to mean you want to go and be a mujahid, then you've forsaken your rights as a British citizen.
No. What I was saying, yeah, you're pretty much correct what you're saying there. But I'm just saying, once you make the intention of leaving this land, going over to another land to implement an Islamic state, because this is why these young people are going there, to do that, you have pretty much forfeited your right, because you're going over there to basically sacrifice your life, your livelihood, your everything to implement an Islamic state. So if just so happens your mission fails, you get caught, I don't think, you can have that sort of double standard and say, well, hold on a minute, mate, I've got a British passport and I want to negotiate. I think there's a bit of a double standard there. I think there are individuals that do this and do it a lot.
That leads into the other question that I wanted to ask, which was on this issue, is that the sense I got is that, so once I heard that argument from you, Baba, and then when Julian said, well, Julian was the one earlier who was saying, okay, so it's all silly that we're going blood for blood, Muslim for Muslim, we're killing each other. I got the sense that, Julian, is the reason that you would argue that in fact we should actually consider that it's not that simple and maybe they should be allowed back, is because actually it's the West playing them, having this campaign to actually get them into the country, fighting for them, and then it's hypocritical not to let them back in. Would you, if the West wasn't doing this via Sheikh CNN, as you put it, would you then have the same view as Baba? Or would you still say, oh, well, because they're British, they should let back in? I just got the sense that the reason you're arguing that, because you don't want to let the West get away with what your view is of them having double standards in the way that they both support the jihadists for their own ends and also later such as in Afghanistan, then go against them when it's no longer favourable for them? Do you understand my question?
Yeah. I know you want to Julian to answer that. Well, I just want to quickly say my little,
Sure.
little bit. In terms of them being allowed back in because they're being played, so to speak, anyway, or used and abused. I think them coming back. I think there's no way for them to come back anyway because they're already seen as public enemy anyway. You know, it's just the image that's portrayed of Muslims. You know. Underneath the table, they're probably getting used left, right, and centre. But over the table, they're looked upon as, enemies of the state or whatever you want to say. So when they do come back, they're still looked upon as terrorists and a threat to the security of the land.
Right.
Yeah. To come back, Ash, I don't want the West to get away with it, as you say. You're right about that. But the law is the law. I think the Syrian caller we had earlier on put it very well, that these people should be tried for war crimes if that's what they've done. I would feel uncomfortable about British Nazis, that if they went away to do a little Nazi jihad somewhere, if they came home and wanted to now be racist in this country, I would feel uncomfortable with that. I wouldn't want their passports revoked, but I would want the law to deal with them as the law says, and Barbara wants to jump back in.
And how would they? Sorry, you mentioned international law earlier, but you never expanded on it. How would they? How would the law deal with it without revoking their passports? I mean, what's your mechanism? Go back to what Barbara and the other gentleman who just spoke before you, Julian, was saying earlier, how do we distinguish between those people who they were saying have genuine intentions and those people who are really, their motives are screwed up, and how does the law judge between these different groups of people?
That's a very good point, and it is very difficult. I think revoking someone's British passport is just a way of washing your hands of them and saying, we've used you, now we're going to lose you.
But isn't that what's been happening? You know, you've got a lot of British nationals that are locked away in prisons and the keys being thrown away without no trial or anything. So, I mean, in theory...
You agree with that, don't you, Barbara?
No, I don't agree.
Because they become jihadis.
No, I don't agree with that. No, I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with...
This is Barbara Griffin.
No, I don't.
On one Ummah.
I don't believe in picking up people and throwing them in cells. No, I don't believe in that at all.
We have to be better than that.
No, I don't believe in that at all. That's wrong.
So it is hard. So international law doesn't necessarily have a solution.
No, it does. And as I said before, it may not be the best solution. It may not be a good solution, but it's the best we have, and we should try.
Another question for all of you would be this idea of clearly a view that you put forward, and I'm just inquiring as an objective listener. I don't want to say that I have this view or that because I haven't probably read as much as you guys have about it. But this idea that the West is collaborating in a way with them, is in bed with them, because through their propaganda campaign, they are not propaganda campaign, but through their urges, they're raising awareness of this issue so that people do go away and try to become shaheed or go and help their brothers or fight against other sects. How explicitly linked is this aim? Is this kind of narrative that they're portraying in the media? How explicitly linked is it to the government? I mean, to what extent could you say that that's actually an undercover policy objective of the British government or the American government? Do you think, is it that clear cut, or is it, how does it work? I mean, what's the actual mechanism by which it works? Because we always talk about these conspiracies, but can we actually point the finger at someone? Yes, we don't know exactly the workings in government, but how black and white is it? It wouldn't be my question.
If you sit back,
this is soggy.
If you sit back and throughout history see with an open mind, without being biased towards either side, it's blatantly obvious. It's so obvious, it's ridiculous. My firm believing is the media controls the mind. There's a lot of ignorant people out there that will turn on to BBC and believe everything BBC tells them, what ITV tells them, what Sky News tells them.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying, I agree with you about the media. I'm saying, is it fair to say, do we know if David Cameron actually, that is his wish? I'm just interested to know the mechanism by which this happens.
He's basically saying, is it black and white that it's a conspiracy that the British government and America is conspiring? I mean, how black and white is it?
And also, let's say someone like David Cameron comes in, he's more interested, first and foremost, with British policy at home. How do you guys think? Because one of the main arguments against you guys from, say, English people would just be, oh, you always say conspiracy. Okay, I agree with
because
the
they do
idea
it
of the
so
media
well.
and everything. Now I'm saying,
You can't prove it. So
yeah. So what I'm saying is, when they come into government, these politicians, how is it that what force is it? What lobby group is it that overrides their intentions simply, first and foremost, to serve their own country in a conservative or a Labour way, and then they actually end up, you know, collaborating in these media campaigns, etc., and government campaigns to get them in bed, the jihadists in bed, and then to turn on them when they don't need them.
If you see who's behind these people, you'll understand it. All these money men, all these media moguls, all these power people, they're of one sect.
Yeah. Okay.
They're, you know, Cameron's just a puppet, same as Obama. These people are just fronted for, are a front to keep the people of the country happy. They had to get Obama.
I think you've been watching too much.
No. It's my honest belief. It's my firm honest belief. This is
he's got his tinfoil hat on.
Conspiracy theorist.
But the point Ash makes, and he makes it very well, is that this isn't as clear cut as it would seem, and conspiracy is there, but we can always dismiss a conspiracy theory. I think the point is the embarrassing fact that Britain and America is in bed with Al Qaeda comes from the fact that the Al Qaeda factions in Syria and the British and Western governments both view each other as useful idiots who want the same thing for different reasons. The British and Americans want rid of Assad because Syria is a strategic region. Much oil has been found in the Mediterranean that Syria controls. Russia has one port there, and there's also pipelines that need to come through. So that is the reason that they have an interest in the region. And the common ground that Al-Qaeda have is, well, we hate Shia Muslims and we hate secularists and we want Sharia law in Syria. Point, So there's where the two meet. It's not for any mutual. It's not a mutual friendship. It's just a common interest.
Between who? Sorry, as in between them being in bed. It's
the
that's the reason. For the time being, it's
for the time being. Exactly.
And when they don't need them, as you were talking all of you about Afghanistan,
as
a case in point, then they can make them let do them. And I'm sorry, I don't want to take you guys' time any longer, but there's just one final question I have, which is the following. Julian, and this is to all of you, but it's what Julian mentioned just now when in answer to my first question. It's a question to all of you. Is when you mentioned yourself, the Prophet predicted, and Muhammad, peace be upon him, I'm not a Muslim, but I just say that out of respect, which is, he predicted there'd be however many sects, as you mentioned, 72, I think you said. Now, does this wider issue of there being so many sects, where does that put Islam? Because on the one hand, you're having more interest from certain groups of people in the West, especially, and the Quran itself. But on the other hand, it seems like a religion divided. And there are many who would put forward the argument that there were some who would say, okay, well, they're embracing them because they're looking at the Quran, the Word of God, 100%, wow, and they are inspired by it, obviously. But on the other hand, this issue of sectarianism is an issue for many because they're looking at it and thinking, wouldn't we actually be better without all this bloodshed? And thus, look at what religion's doing. Look at the issue it's posing. So where does that put Islam? And is that an issue for you guys?
Okay, Ash, as a fellow respectful non-Muslim, my response would be that there are 72 sects plus or whatever. It is an issue for the Muslims. It is one that their enemies are using against them. Equally, that there are 72 sects. There is one Quran, unchanged from the time it was revealed, and the Muslims should look to that and acknowledge that their brother, whether he's Shia, Sunni, Maliki, Hanbali, Salafi, whatever it is, he believes in the same Quran as you and the same God, and he's your brother, and extend that to the whole of humanity, that whether he's a brother in Islam, he's a brother in humanity.
Is there a way back, though, guys? That's what I'm asking you. Is there a way back from this? Because you predict Islam to have a glorious future, but this seems to be an issue.
Well, the only way back is, like I said before throughout the show, the most dominant group will prevail, and a lot of people. It's not nice to talk about it, bloodshed and stuff like that, and it's not a nice thing. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody to go through that. but unfortunately this is the course. I can't see, going to the ballot boxes, or I can't see, anything like that. I just see it as that way, that war is inevitable. It's just something that unfortunately has to be done.
What is a shame, in fact, is the fact that you look at the Quran, and it's a Quran that all of these, however many factions, view as one common book. But as soon as someone wants to actually embrace the faith of Islam, they will immediately become associated in some way or form with one of these factions, and have no way to actually distinguish between them.
Well,
so,
there is distinguishing.
In the sense of that they will take whatever faith, whatever aspect that they've kind of been led to and nurtured to believe. So this is an issue, perhaps.
Yes and no, because when you say in Islam, we're always about going with the majority, because it's always been said that the majority, you always go with the majority in any decisions that need to be made. So, we have foundations in Islam that people must adhere to, and certain values that you must keep up with to keep yourself in the fold of Islam. A lot of people don't like to say that, to say that, you can't say that, if you don't pray for a certain amount of days, you're not Muslim anymore. A lot of people don't like to say these things, but there is criteria in the religion, and Julian, you're a religious study teacher. As a Muslim, there's certain criteria that you have to adhere to. If you don't, then you fall out of the fold.
Well, but might I say that might be your... Well, there are many, as we said, there are many interpretations. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I think the problem is most people... a lot of Muslims are looking at other Muslims and saying who isn't a Muslim, rather than looking at themselves and saying, well, how can I be a better Muslim? From what I understand, a Muslim is one who believes in one God and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It's as simple or as complicated as that for me. The rest is kind of details, and that the more we focus on these divisions, the more the enemies of the Muslims and the other good people in the Middle East will be taking their things from them.
Okay, interesting. And what's going to happen now? What do you guys think, as a final comment, what do you guys think will happen? Let's forget about what should or should not happen with these guys coming back, but what is the British government going to do, if you had to guess? With this situation?
I think what's going to happen is what everyone knows is going to happen. These individuals are going to be tagged, or whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it. And as soon as they come through those doors at Heathrow Airport, they're going to get pulled over, and that's what's going to happen. And they're going to be made examples of.
Did you mean in Syria or the UK, Ash?
UK.
The UK, mate.
That's in the UK. Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I think Baba's got it there. Well said.
So, like we said, they're probably being played and used and abused under the table, but on the outer side of things, they're still looked upon as public enemy, and these are the scourge of society still.
I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that this already, but I'm aware of people who have brothers. I mean, there's one guy I heard about. I don't know anyone who's fighting in Syria myself at all, but I heard about one through a friend of a friend that his brother is fighting in Syria, and they actually, the whatever militia he's fighting for won't actually let him come back now. They will kill him, they say, if he leaves. He stays and he fights. So it's all getting a bit sticky, and it's going to be difficult, I think, as a few of you, all of you, I think, have said, with the legal situation, even if there is international law, how to separate these motives. It's all going to become a bit of a bloodbath, not just literally, but figuratively.
This is going back to what we were saying as well earlier, Ash. Yeah, basically, we were saying that earlier. We were saying that once you make the intention of going over there because you want to implement Islamic law and you want to help your brothers and sisters, and your Sunni brothers and sisters are being oppressed, you pretty much sacrificed you've done something that you can't go back, and if you think that you're going to go over there and come back, I think it's quite very naive way of thinking. I don't believe they know what they're getting themselves into, because you can't go into a war and then think, okay, I'm going to come back. This is one principle I never agreed with, especially when I watch these movies, Hollywood movies, when the soldiers are always saying, I need to go back to my darling, or I want to go back to my wife. No, when you go to war, that's it. You're not going back.
You
Yeah.
should go with the belief that you're not coming
yeah.
back.
You have to go with the belief you're not coming back. Because if you go with the belief that you're always going to come back, you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah.
Ash,
that-
before you go, completely off the subject,
Yeah.
did America really put a man on the moon?
Wow.
Just a thought.
That's a very interesting comment, and I know
food
where you're
for
coming
thought.
from.
It's a
I think you're coming
it's a-
from the perspective, if I'm not mistaken, of this idea that actually our perception as kind of related to us by the media
No, but this
is
is
way more flawed
this is
than
what I'm
we think
touching
it
on. Is the media to a narrow-minded person can make you believe anything they want you
No,
to believe?
absolutely.
You know, if we went to the moon in '69, I'm sure we should be going to the moon every day. You
But
know,
then-
if
but then-
they
then-
jihad.
yeah, I mean, if we went to the moon in 1969, you know, it should be a regular route. We should all be paying £1,000 and going to see the moon.
Now, this is where the issue arises, because all this stuff, you know, I mean, I was asking to it because I wanted to see your reviews, but obviously I've watched these films as well about the power brokers. You know, you've got the politicians portrayed as puppets. You've got the convenience of being in bed with the kind of your opposition in years to come. You know, being in bed with Al Qaeda and then kind of trying to fight against them in Afghanistan and Iraq. But what I would ask you is, what I would say at the same time is, yes, conspiracy media has a huge influence on us, a hugely negative influence on us, a hugely partisan influence on us. But at the same time, then where do we draw the line? Because you've also got conspiracies about 9/11 now, that it was actually Jews who bombed the
Without a shadow of a
9/11.
doubt. I don't even know how that's a conspiracy.
No, what I'm asking is...
Well, we're
like,
on
how,
dangerous
you know,
ground
see,
there.
where do we draw the line? Because some people would accept what you've just said about what you guys have just argued about being in bed as with the Al Qaeda as actually very almost fact, right? The idea that they funded the Taliban to fight to fight off the Russians, and then the Taliban came back to haunt them. Now, in the case of 9/11. Then you'd lose a lot of your sympathisers. Then they'd be like, "Oh well, come on now, conspiracy theories." So this is what I'm asking, and care to shed any light on that from your
Ash,
point of view?
very briefly, even if I don't accept what you said there. I think you said it in a very simplistic way. Anyway, if we accept the official line that Al Qaeda did 9/11, the question is, who is Al Qaeda?
No, mate. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm saying, look, you might argue. And I'm sorry if I'm being too simplistic. I'm just trying to
that's all right. I
get
think
the issue like across, like generally the way you put it. I'm saying, like, let's say we've got that point number one, which is okay. They did fund the Taliban to fight the Russians, and now the Taliban came to win back. That's well documented even. But in the case of a 9/11, then it starts getting silly from some people's point of view, like that if you actually say anything other than the fact that the people who were in those planes and bombed it actually did bomb it, then to come up with a conspiracy there is, dangerous.
But what I'm saying is, even if you take the official line, the conspiracy is still there, because Al Qaeda were a creation of America. They did their bidding in Afghanistan, and what they did on 9/11 benefited America as it opened
This
the
whole
door.
thing, Julian. This whole
You
thing.
see what I mean?
This
That's
whole
an interesting
thing.
point, Julian. I understand where you're coming
Thank
from.
you, Ash. Thank you.
This whole thing about Russia and Afghanistan and whatnot. I believe the Afghanistan people had a right to defend themselves. They got weapons from America, because America obviously they had their issues with Russia, and then it just carried on from there. And obviously the Taliban was created, and so on and so forth. But I believe Afghanistan had a right to defend themselves, obviously, from an invading superpower that was coming into their land, which was pretty much just dust.
Yeah, just to clarify, guys, also, I wasn't saying that I believe or don't believe in the conspiracy. I was just putting it out there, the different points of view, just in case it came across that I was
just
taking
quickly,
one
Ash.
side or another.
Just quickly, Ash. Do you think 9/11 was just one big insurance scam? Because I think that was a big part of it.
Can you expand on that? Before, just to answer your question before I ask you to expand on it, because I don't quite get your point. I don't really know about it. I don't think I feel well informed enough to make a judgment. I'm just aware of the different arguments about it from online, from Muslim friends, from secular friends.
Ash,
from the
Ash,
media.
before you
What's
go,
your
I mean,
view?
we're going on a bit here.
What's your view?
Ash, before you go,
Yeah.
read up 3 days the economic state of America leading up to the 9/11. 3 days economic state of America before 9/11
Can
happened.
you just tell me what you summarise it? Just here, your insurance thing very quickly. What you're trying
We'll
to
tell
say.
you next week, Ash. Tune in.
Oh, okay.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
It's a cliffhanger.
All right, sorry. Yeah, I didn't realise. you had to go.
Great call, fella.
All right,
Thank
sorry,
you.
mate. Take
Cheers,
care.
thanks for that.
Take care, guys.
Appreciate it,
Bye.
mate. Thank you.
I enjoyed that.
It's good to get a different perspective.
I enjoyed that call.
Thanks for that,
Ash.
Ash.
Right.
So I mean,
Been around the houses.
okay, I think we're going to wrap it up, inshallah. We've gone on. You know, we could talk about this again some other time. This show will be repeated again. It will be put up tomorrow on. It will be repeated on the radio and also, I believe,
On
on
the
YouTube as
Facebook,
well.
yeah,
And on
YouTube.
anyway, just keep up with our updates on Facebook, and you know you'll be well informed, inshallah, regarding our show and
The other
later shows.
thing before we go, messages. We're still collecting humanitarian aid for keep Syria warm. Emergency, brothers and sisters. There's no need. Thank you, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for your donation of clothes. There's no more room to store any clothes, so if anybody still wants to give towards this cause, please, we want blankets, medicine and food. So I reiterate, medicine, blanket and food. Please either drop it off at Pakistani Community Centre, and I would like to thank Haroon from After the Accident, who has said also can use his premises as a drop-off point. So if anybody else's part wants to drop off, then after the accident they have made their facility available to drop off there, and also the Pakistani Community Centre. So if anybody wants to donate, it's urgently, we need medicine, blankets and food. So it doesn't have to be branded food. You know, you can go to Aldi and pick up 10 kilos of rice for a couple of quid, so it won't kill you. So inshallah, if you want to keep donating towards this Syrian project, so please do so.
Got a text in for you, Julian.
Okay.
The text reads, "We're not terrorists, we're tourists."
Me too. I'm a fellow tourist. Well said.
So you've been listening to the Late Show. Jazakallah khair for listening.
Tune in next week, inshallah.
Inshallah.
We'll keep it interesting as best we can. And support our show, keep supporting, and also join our Facebook page for updates.
For updates every so often. If you want to come live in the studio and want to represent a subject, then also please give Yasser Ali a call. So he'll hook you up, inshallah, and get you live in the studio if you're passionate about airing something, any concern, any subject that worries you, you want to air, you want to make people, or any charities out there that want to advertise, any other organisation, any other business that wants to do anything useful in the community, and you want advertising, then this is your space, this is your voice. We are the people's voice, inshallah. So from next week 9:30, thank you, Yasser Ali. I'm sure you're going to come up with another great subject. Julian, more than a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
More than welcome next week. And Paul Bloomfield, I know your nan's not well, bro. Inshallah, we'll see you next week and hope she gets better. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Reading, see you soon.